Hello everyone, this is Peter Bom for Australian Motorcycle News with an update from what happened today in Hungary at the MotoGP race at the new Balaton ring. And let's start with the track, the Balaton ring. Very new track, only been used once this year earlier by the Superbikes, and the guys that came back from the Superbike race were not really that positive about the track. So MotoGP has to go there as well. Some riders went testing there earlier, not everybody, because it doesn't make a lot of sense. If you have been testing there, you can't test on, if you don't test on a MotoGP bike, it feels like it's a different track. So yeah, all the Ducati riders went there, just to familiarize themselves and gather some data, but it's not that very important. The track is very narrow and it has just couple of short sprint strips like upright sprinting, stopping and going. Lots of very tight chicanes, very tight corners. Average speeds quite low, all the time on the brakes, and you just can't use the power of a MotoGP bike. I'm all for having a world championship on very different tracks because all the obvious reasons. Some riders are stronger here or there, the bikes are stronger here. But this is probably a bit too much. Yeah, definitely it is a very different track, but you can also say it's a go-kart track. So there were doubts of bikes even would reach 6th gear, but they managed to bring the gearbox a lot closer together, probably mostly with the final ratio, and then use still 6th gear. Over start finish they go quite shortly into 6th gear. They reach just 305 km/h before they have to brake hard for turn number 1. You can do this. It sounds a bit weird to make the gearbox very short and then do a lot of shifting all the time, because from 3rd to 6th over the whole track. But with the seamless gearboxes in these MotoGP bikes, when the guys shift up but also down, it doesn't break traction of the tire, it doesn't have any influence or suspension of the bike. It's just, they're just all the time on the gear lever to use the most of the power. But for sure on a track like this, they were probably not even 15% of the time using full throttle on these things. So yep, okay. The other particular thing is the sprint. Okay, this is the finish line, but the start is a little bit later. From the start to the first corner is quite short. And yeah, the first corner is super tight right-handed, and then immediately followed by 3 left-handers in a row. Yeah, you know what I'm going to say. I'm a little bit worried for what happens in the first corner. It looks like same situation like in Sepang, but Sepang is a bit wider. You know, it's a hairpin, but at least it's a wide hairpin, and here it's even worse. It's really steep. So anyway, I'm a little bit afraid we end up with a track here where things will happen at the first corner that will have a big influence on the race. I'm not so much worried for safety because speeds are relatively low there. I'm also a little bit worried that on this track overtaking is going to be quite difficult. I mean, where to overtake? You need a longer straight. And you need preferably 1-2 fast corners and then a long braking area for people to have an overtaking option. Well, we don't have that here. There is 1-2 fast corners. I think here this is a pretty fast one. This is a fast one. Here they are still accelerating. This is a fast corner. Everything else is just stop, go. Now, so overtaking probably difficult as well. But you know, if I sound negative, that's because my first impression after the first day is actually quite negative. Things can only get better from here on. So what happened today? Chaos. In the first free training from today, like Friday morning, 2 Aprilias blow up an engine within 5 minutes of each other. Now there's only 4 Aprilias on the track. If 2 of them break an engine in a similar way, as far as I could see, like really breaking it, within 5 minutes, then something is really wrong. Then you start to think, oh, the latest batch of oil is maybe wrong, or the new ignition map coming from the dyno guys is maybe a bit over the top. Something went really wrong there. So later Aprilia told us that the engine from Martin, that was the first to break, was the same engine that he had a crash with last week. So, but still, it's a bit dodgy. In the end, it was not a really good day for Aprilia at all, because they didn't have one bike in the top 10, but I'm running ahead of myself. We had no Aprilias in the top 10. We had no Yamahas in the top 10. Except of course for Fabio Quartararo, because he is Fabio Quartararo. He's just one of the best of all the riders. So even on a Yamaha he can do something. But the Yamaha last week, it was like a sitting duck, couldn't do anything on a bike with long hard accelerations. Now it's short accelerations, short stopping, and they're still just as bad. So Yamaha, they're in a hole. Who's also in a deep hole actually today? Not Fabio Quartararo, Pecco Bagnaia. He finished the lowly. I'm going to show you the result list here. We see Pecco Bagnaia in P14 after the first day, and actually that was not just because he was unlucky in the end of the 10-minute session from this afternoon, where there is like pre-qualifying. He just didn't put one good lap together. He not had a good race pace, not had a fast lap, lots of little mistakes. So Pecco still is in a dark place. Well, Pecco and Fabio Gianantonio plus Marc Marquez are the only three riders on the 2025 Ducati, which by now becomes clear is a disaster bike. It's only just Marc is Marc. But if we look at the list, we also see Pedro Acosta fastest on Friday. And this was not just one really good lap or something. Pedro was fast all day. Now KTM, Paul Espargaro with the MotoGP bike had a test on this track before, so they start on Friday with a little bit of an advantage over everybody. But in the end, we have 3 KTMs in the top 10, one even leading it. And the other good thing is Pedro Acosta, just like Marc Marquez, also has quite good pace on the medium tire, which is not for qualifying, or on a used soft tire. You could do lots of good laps. So the KTMs like this track. Marc Marquez likes this track. Last year's Ducati liked this track. I was expecting the Hondas to be a little bit better here, but we got only one Honda in the top 10 here so far. But you know what is the situation? If we all go to a new track like this, where there is so much new information, new asphalt, new layout and so on, the Friday is a little bit upside down. They will usually make, from Friday to Saturday, most teams will make a bigger step in the improvement. So tomorrow, the pecking order can be completely different. What probably will not be very different is we have the top 10 here in 0.6 seconds. If you think that's close, think again, because on a track like this, narrow, small, bit of a shitty track, lap times will be a lot closer tomorrow. Expect 0.4 in the top 10 or even 0.3 for the top 10, which is really, really close. Sounds exciting, but on a track where probably overtaking is not that easy, it's not the best thing as well. But I'm sounding negative again. Let's see what tomorrow's really qualifying and then the sprint will bring for us. Australian riders, Moto3, Joao Kelso, quite strong in the morning session, but started the afternoon session immediately with a crash. Then had to go with another set of new tires in the time attack and had a crash again. I think he mentioned the wind. With Moto3 bikes, they are so light. If there is quite a good wind, you will notice. So he was a bit unlucky there. He finished outside the top 14. So tomorrow in Q1, he has to try to go to Q2 straight away. Jacob Ruhlstrom did it better by finishing 9th today. He is straight into Q2. Nobody from you Aussie guys in the Moto2, because we only have Senna Ages there, and he had quite a big scary crash actually last week at the start in turn 2 on Spielberg, and he was some guy ran over him, and so he's not that seriously wounded, but he couldn't ride here today, so he's replaced by another rider, and no Aussie riders in the Moto2. Obviously we have Jack Miller in the Moto3, and then he in the MotoGP, he's 17, still he has 2 Yamahas behind him. He's like the second fastest Yamaha after Fabio Quartararo, which is a sore thing to say. That's it from today's Friday action at the Balaton ring in Hungary. Thanks for watching, hope you enjoyed it, and see you tomorrow again. Bye everyone.